So yeah, I'm a product director at VMware, was Pivotal. So I wanted to talk about strategy because I see a lot of misunderstanding about what it is. And so I've put together this presentation to try to unpick it. So as a product manager, I think in terms of outcomes. And the outcomes I'd like for you at the end of tonight is to understand why you want a really solid product strategy, to understand what is the research and what's the understanding you need to have before you embark on building or iterating on a strategy, and also what is the structure of a strategy. I mean, I think you'll get to the end of this and you'll hopefully know those things. I believe there's probably a next step, a talk I need to do next, which is like, now that you know all those things, how do you actually build the thing? But it's such a big, hairy subject, I had to kind of draw some boundaries about it, or around it, and this to me is the kind of first step in understanding how to build a strategy. Okay, so why? There's three really, really good reasons for why you want a product strategy. One, it's how you have a successful business. If you don't have a strategy, you're kind of running blind, you're doing like whatever's in front of you, and chances are you're not going to be successful. Two, it enables focus and direction. So as a product manager, there are always 25 really shiny things that you could be doing. And some of them will help move your business forward and some of them won't, even though they're really shiny. And so what a strategy, a good strategy will help you do is say yes to the things that are important to your business and no to the things that aren't important. The third thing that a strategy will do, a well-articulated strategy, is it will mean that everybody in your team and in your company understands why you're doing what you're doing, which is really important. The other part is that it can unlock investment. So if you have a really good argument about, or a strong strategy will convince people that this is a business that's going to go somewhere and people want to invest in it. And that could be internal investment within a company or VC or something like that. Okay, so what is a strategy? So a strategy is not a vision. It's not a set of outcomes. It's not a mission statement. So when I say a set of outcomes, it's not, oh, we're going to grow our customer base by 20%. That is an outcome. That is not a strategy. It's really the how to achieve the what based on insight. So it's a plan. It's longer term. It's overarching. It's like months to years. It's founded, this is really important, it's founded in an understanding of current and future conditions. So it's based on really understanding a whole bunch of things in order to drive insight. And it's also, this is something that's really common. People think strategy is only about product features. It's not at all. It might be about marketing campaigns. It might be about opening, going into new markets. It's the whole holistic picture of the business. It's not just, we're going to build these 5 features. To explain it, I invented a company, Scooby-Doo Dog Walkers. Scooby-Doo Dog Walkers is a subsidiary of Scooby-Doo Pet Care. The vision for Scooby-Doo Dog Walkers is to offer safe, healthy, and convenient dog walking services to busy people in the London area. So we're going to all the examples are going to be about dog walking. Okay, so I wanted to, we talked just a tiny bit about what is a strategy. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to read each of these statements. Okay, yeah, so spot on. So the first one is an outcome. We're going to increase walks per month by 30%. That's something that a good strategy could lead to, but it is not a strategy in and of itself. The second one is a feature. We're going to add location tracking to dog walks. That is a thing that could be an action that you take based on your strategy, but it's not a strategy itself. But the third one is absolutely a strategy. You've identified a trend, and you've got a plan to take advantage of that insight that you found. All right, so what goes into strategy? You need to build a deep, rich picture of the team. So in this case, it's the Scooby-Doo dog walking product team. The company, so in this case, it's the Scooby-Doo pet care company. And then the industry, in this case, it's the pet care industry. So all of those things. For companies where there's just one product, the team and the company are collapsed. If you think about team focus, the first thing you want to think about is what is the problem space, what is the market that your team is going after. So what are the dog walking challenges that dog owners face that are so painful that people will pay for them? How big is the London market? Who else offers dog walking services, and what sort of, what does their product look like? Then you also want to look at the team, the kind of the team itself, an internal facing understanding. So what is the vision for the team? What are the strengths of the team? What are you really good at that you can leverage? And then what is the role in the company strategy and company revenue? So it could be that dog walking is a really big, it's the primary revenue source for the company. But it also might be that dog walking doesn't generate a lot of revenue, but it's super important to the company because it brings other customers in who then buy other things. So a company is kind of a system, and you need to understand where your product fits in the system of the company in terms of strategy and revenue. And then you go out a level and you look at the company itself. What market are they in? So how are the customers segmented, for example? Do you think about pet owners in terms of how much they spend per pet, or what kind of pet they have? I mean, like how do you ideate around who the customers are? How big is the market? How active is it? What are the big opportunities in the market? That's things like, is there a new sort of product sector starting? Like I've heard recently about pet care, pet mental health. So there might be like this new thing that you could go after. Who are the competitors? Who are the biggest players? And then you also need to understand the company vision and strategy. The strategy for your team needs to align to the company strategy. You need to understand, again, company strength and value proposition, revenue mechanism, and then other product initiatives. So if with this pet care company that we're talking about, it might be that they're going after a new neighborhood in London to distribute, some new product. So maybe there's like a co-marketing opportunity. Or the company strategy is all around subscription revenue. And so where you get recurring payments from people. And so you need to think about your how you get people to pay for these dog walks in terms of that sort of payment model. And then there's the industry focus, so looking really broad. So it might be that there's like a new regulation, and if you get ahead of this regulation, that you'll have a competitive advantage for some set of time. So those are all the things that you want to get your head around before you actually embark on creating a product strategy. So now I'm going to talk about what is a strategy. Now I am copying or borrowing or paying homage to this really great book, which is called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. If you buy one book, this is the book. And the way that the author talks about strategy is that it's a diagnosis, which is the problem or opportunity. It's the guiding principle, so how will we solve it kind of broadly. And then there are the actions that are the things that are the actual doing the thing that you're saying in your guiding principle. So if you think about the dog walking, there's one insight where convenience is as important as cost for many people when choosing services. So if you've done your research, you've learned that, then that can be, like, that's an important thing to know when you're thinking about how you're going to create a strategy. So based on that diagnosis, you might then say, our dog walking solution will be digital first with a focus on convenience. So often the guiding principle is kind of just a rewording of the diagnosis. And then the actions are more concrete. So we'll provide on-demand dog walking, we will offer flexible online booking. So a little bit more detail on the diagnosis. A diagnosis defines or explains the nature of the challenge. It can be about your customer base. It can be about a recent or upcoming change, like a change in technology or the market. It can be about your unfair advantage. So in this particular case, the dog walking team is part of a pet care company. So there are probably opportunities there. So I suppose a point is a diagnosis can come from a whole different range of places. Like you've done all that research and you don't know what you're going to learn where, but any of those places is like a suitable source of a diagnosis. It is the most critical step because it's the thing that points to everything that comes after. So if your diagnosis isn't accurate, then the rest of your strategy is just, you're kind of going in the wrong direction. Again, you use the information that I talked about earlier about your team, your company, and the industry. And so here are some diagnosis examples for the Scooby-Doo dog walking company. Again, the convenience one. GPS tracking technology is now cheap. So that's not actually really about dog walking at all, but it's sort of recognizing an opportunity in a different sector that unlocks something for dog walking. People are spending more money on their pets. So that's a trend that you might learn via analyst research or reading the newspaper. Then the guiding principle is the thing, you take the diagnosis and you build a guiding principle based on what your diagnosis is. So it's not a particular solution, it's like a really high level, we're going to go in this direction because we know this. So it's sort of a category of initiative. So here's some examples of guiding principles. So we talked about the convenience one already. So for GPS tracking technology, we're going to leverage location data. That's sort of a guiding principle based on realizing that the technology is cheap. And then we'll maximize revenue per customer because we've learned that people are spending more on their pets. So there's like an opportunity to get more spend from each customer. I've got a couple slides with non-examples because I think non-examples are actually a really good learning tool. So we will create social opportunities around dog ownership. So this doesn't align to the vision for the company. It also doesn't align to any diagnosis. So that's not a guiding principle. We will grow our customer base by 10% in 2020. Again, this is an outcome. We will expand into dog grooming. It matches the diagnosis around an additional spend, but it's actually more of an action than it is a guiding principle. It's like too concrete, too specific. So the action is the next level down. It's like, you've got this guiding principle of like your direction of travel. What are the broad things that you're really going to go do? So again, examples, we will, in terms of making the service as convenient as possible, we're going to offer on-demand dog walking services. In terms of leveraging location data, so we're going to use location data to provide a better service. So again, it's not roadmap level, it's a level up, but it's a specific thing that we're going to do. And then maximizing revenue per customer, we're going to partner with other parts of the company to offer other products and services for dogs. This just sort of puts it all together so you can see as you move from the left to the right, it gets more and more specific, more concrete. And everything on the left, like everything on the right is a result of the thing that's just to it on the left. Does that make sense? Cool. Again, I'm going to go do some of the non-examples just because I I don't know, sometimes they're funny. So we will offer on-demand dog walking services as an action for making the service as convenient as possible. We will sell dog leads, does not. We will leverage location data. We will provide a personalized online experience for dog owners. Again, it might be a really shiny, nice thing to do, but doesn't map to the diagnosis or the guiding principle. We will expand into new geographic locations. Again, doesn't match. So pulling it all together, we now have a set of diagnoses and guiding principles and actions for our dog walking business that, assuming the learning that we did is accurate and our execution is good, should really help us be successful. So strategy is a living thing, and you can use a lot of your product tools for strategy. So are you familiar with discovery and framing? Okay, so the idea is that you go broad to understand the diagnoses that you might choose, and then you figure out how to prioritize them, how to sift them down into the diagnosis that makes the most sense, and then you do the same thing for the guiding principles. You want to continuously iterate, so it's you don't create a strategy and then let it sit on the shelf. You want to constantly be taking in new signals, continuously learning and revisiting and adjusting based on the signals that you're getting. And you might get to a point where it's this pivot or persevere moment where you say, actually, the thing that we thought around leveraging GPS data is just not working for the customer. So we're going to put it down. We're not going to do it anymore. And you need to validate your assumptions. So this is when you think about a diagnosis, there are probably assumptions baked into it, and it's so vital that you make sure that you figure out what your assumptions are, and then you challenge each one of them. And just put away your diagnosis. Put down your diagnosis if you can't validate it, because you'll be saving yourself a lot of money, and you'll be much more successful if you do that. Strategy is a team sport, so it isn't something that somebody sits in a room by themselves doing. Are you familiar with the concept of balanced team? Balanced team is an idea that engineers and designers and product managers all work together to achieve outcomes, and it's actually a talk I'm doing soon. More brains are better than one brain. And when you're doing this process, you want to get input and get feedback from basically as many people who have a useful opinion as possible. Okay, so I want to just talk about the outcomes of a good strategy, just to convince you, if you're not already convinced, that it's a very important thing to have. So a good strategy will dictate the opportunities you go after and help you deprioritize the things that you shouldn't be paying attention to. Help you define customer pain points and needs. So as part of this process, you will be learning about your customer. Imply a clear roadmap of solutions. Will point you in a direction for what you should build. It'll help you articulate your competitive advantage. So you'll understand who your competitors are and how you're different, and then actually how you can market your product. So just to sum everything up, why do you want a strategy? To be successful as a business. Before you think about strategy, make sure you have a really great understanding of your team and your company and your industry. And what is a strategy? A strategy is a diagnosis, a set of diagnoses, a set of guiding principles that map to that address that diagnosis, and a set of actions that map to the guiding principles. And yes, this is a plug. I am speaking on Balance Team at ProductCon on February 11th. So I hope to see you all there. Questions?
Any have any questions for Phyllis? It could be on the presentation itself. Any additional questions that you may have, you're more than happy to take those.
Yeah.
So, how do you align your your strategy with the wider strategy of the company? If you're working in somewhere that's quite large, they will have their where they're going, and obviously you would hope that you have enough wiggle room that they just say, this is what you're aiming for, get there however you like, but that's actually not always what you're free to do. So, you know what I mean? Not really.
No, can you be more specific?
Yeah, so I'm working in an NHS-based app, and so lots of what I have to deal with is from a wider healthcare company that have lots of different competing priorities, and so my vision of where we're going and their vision are not always aligned at all, and sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. So you might have a strategy of where you think you're going to, but actually other people have quite a big say in what that might look like.
There's two possible answers, and I'm not sure which one is the right one, so just let's talk about it. One, it sounds, it might be just a dysfunctional kind of like a place that could use some improvement in terms of overall strategy and enabling teams to cascade from a higher strategy. Or it could be about stakeholder management. Is it, which one of those?
Yeah, I feel like the company as a whole is trying to, they're only focused on user numbers, that's all they care about. Okay. But actually, in order to build a decent product that's going to last over time, that's not a sustainable way of getting there. No. And so you have to say, okay, well that's great, but we're actually going to do X, Y, and Z. And sometimes it's quite easy to get buy-in for that, and sometimes it's been a real challenge because actually to push back and say, well, raw numbers reflect sales more than they reflect anything about the product is quite difficult. Yeah. Because then that's
My strategy for that sort of thing is usually trying to get data. So if, for example, focusing on the wrong thing is causing customer churn, then that's something you could point to. Do you have data sources that you could?
Oh yeah, really, really good data. I think I'm quite new to the company and they're not used to looking at data. So presenting data has been quite a challenge because people are used to being like, this is what I think, and you really do that who shouts the loudest, which isn't very productive, but does often happen.
I mean, it sounds like a really challenging situation where it's gonna probably take a bit of you educating people about ways of working in terms of like looking at data and being more customer centered, and then also trying to influence like the higher level strategy to be more, it sounds like more long term, more strategic, because again, like increasing customer numbers is not a strategy. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you said the thing about the balance team and having that.
Yeah.
When you're kind of wanting to kind of churn out an idea and stuff, have you read 5-day sprints? In terms of kind of getting them together, how long would you recommend that, you know, if you're going to pull resources from other sides and other teams maybe in a kind of bigger company, how long would you recommend kind of getting that group together in order to get the vision and the strategy and put together your roadmaps and kind of milestones in order to, milestones to your end goal?
Wow. I've never done it. I'm trying to think about trying to do it for the first time. There's so much work that goes into building a shared understanding of all those, of that team, product, industry. So you have to have done that pre-work. But then in terms of kind of maybe a workshop to then turn that into a vision and strategy, I think you can do that in a day. But then that's, like as I said, that's the first draft.
Yeah, but then you're going to need timelines and how to execute and everything like that. In terms of just the kind of prep work, that's the kind of foundational stage in terms of how to educate everyone around what the common goal could be. But just in terms of like the resource and everything like that, in terms of just pooling the resources and seeing what's achievable, do you think you can achieve that in a day in terms of strategy?
Well, no, I'm just talking about vision and strategy. There's a whole, once you have a strategy, then you have actions that you're gonna do, and then you have to do a discovery and framing to understand how you're gonna address those actions. And that's like 6-8 weeks at least, depending on the size of the thing. And then at the end of that, you have a roadmap item, and then you have to de-risk that, and then you can start building it. So, I mean, that's, I don't know, 6 months.
Yeah.
I'm making that number up, but it's a long time. Yeah.
Segue onto that question, really. Great speech, by the way, so thank you. I just wanted to find out about methodologies within the team. So I've heard stuff like Scrum, Agile, etc. Is there a set way in terms of building the team ethos and methodology to help drive forward the strategy that you will use?
That's a good question. At Pivotal, the company I worked for up until a week ago, we are big proponents of XP and Lean and user-centered design. Those are the 3 things that we use. And I find them they work very well. I'm also a big proponent of balanced team. And balanced team is this idea that the team is there is a kind of very old-fashioned, in my mind, idea that the product manager is the CEO. I think completely not. The product manager is the facilitator, and that all the signals about customer feedback and sales and marketing and industry should all go to everybody in the team. And then when you come together, you've got 10 great brains ideating, coming from different perspectives. Like engineers think differently than product managers, and think differently from designers, and I think you get a much better outcome.
I think it's really hard to talk about strategy in generic terms, right? Because it's so different in different settings. My question is, you said that diagnosis is really the most important thing because it's the foundation for everything else. I think it might also be the hardest thing.
Absolutely.
Because you need to know what to diagnose and how to diagnose it. And you could endlessly collect data. So there are people that just collect loads of data, but then what to do with it and how much of this data is actually meaningful. So my question is simply, can you expand a little bit on diagnosis? Anything, any do's or don'ts, any kind of frameworks or models? Normally you see a lot of these standard models like Porter's 5 forces for competition and stuff like that. Anything that comes to mind that you found particularly useful in diagnosis?
SWOT analysis is usually pretty helpful. But it is, I will say it really is more of an art form than a science. I would leverage, if you've got industry analysts, what I tend to do actually is talk to the smartest people at the company and just pick their brain and see like what great ideas they've had. And it really is, I'm sorry I don't have a better answer, but it really is more of an art form than a science.
Yeah. Like I said, it's hard to talk about these things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
sorry.
But you can use your product tools to, like, you have those to lean on to validate your diagnosis. And so you're not running completely blind. Yeah.
I'm in an early stage startup and I'm at the point of having to extract from the founders the reason for being, which sounds very much just like the diagnosis, which is, you can't come up with strategy. Well, our product is the strategy and the reason for being. Do you find that kind of correlates in your mind? That's the kind of what I've taken away from this. The diagnosis feels very much like the reason we as a company will exist is the problem set we're trying to solve for our client. So that our strategy then becomes from that.
Yeah, that's a good. I had a bit about something like that in the talk, and I took it out for length purposes. There is usually a founding diagnosis. So, like the founding diagnosis for dog walking is that people are really busy and are outsourcing services. And then once you, it's not enough to just have that one diagnosis. You then need to layer on what is the more specific opportunity that you're going after. And conditions change over time, and you need to recognize that those conditions change and take advantage of them.
Yeah.
Okay.